y'all, howdy. Welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandy Broadwell, and today we're going to talk about 10 essential nature nonfiction reads. I have a degree in environmental science and have always loved being out in nature, feeling a part of nature, and reading about nature. And I love exploring the relationship of people to our natural environment. The books I talk about today are not going to be like outdoor field guides or manuals or outdoor adventure memoirs or anything like that. These will be books by either scientists or environmental journalists that focus on that essential relationship between man and nature. Some of these will be, if you've read in this field at all, glaringly obvious and sort of classics of the field. Again, some of these were required reads for me as an undergrad, but some of them are books I've just found on my own over the years that really had an impact on me and that I would highly recommend. We'll go through these in the order from oldest to newest, starting with, of course, Walden by Henry David Thoreau. This book was published in the 1850s by one of the field's greatest transcendentalists who really kind of helped spark the transcendentalism movement back in the day. And transcendentalism was really all about embracing a spiritual connection to nature and really like individualism and simplicity over adherence to cultural norms and materialism. And I think that the writing in here is absolutely beautiful and still resounds within me today, and many people have become environmentalists or had a deeper connection to nature, I think, because of Thoreau's words. Why always dogs? Sorry about the barking dogs and construction happening in the neighborhood. I just thought filming outside today would be appropriate. It is Earth Day, the day that I'm filming this, so that was the inspiration for the video. Number 2, we're skipping ahead 100 years, moving straight into 1949, which was the year that A Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold was published. This is a collection of essays. Aldo Leopold was one of the first certified foresters in the United States, one of the first graduates of the Yale School of Forestry, and was really a foundational thinker in this field. He spoke highly of a land ethic and how people's relationship to the land should be something that is a relationship of care. At the time when he was a forester and a naturalist, it was a common practice to kill predators as they were seen as detrimental to the prey species and the humans throughout the ecosystems, and doing so actually wreaked havoc, of course, on all of the ecosystems because there is a balance found inherently in nature that was disrupted by that, and he felt really guilty about the practices that he took part in as a younger person exploring and inhabiting nature and the tasks that he undertook. And so this is a very reflective book, and his writing is just very lyrical and beautiful, which is always my favorite kind, and this book is really impactful and I think still resonates. Next up, we're moving into 1962, which is the year that Silent Spring by Rachel Carson was published. Silent Spring is about, the essential theme of the book is that pesticides are killing our environment. The book specifically focuses on DDT, which was a widely used pesticide at the time, and that was killing a lot of birds. Specifically, this became a public outcry because it was killing bald eagles. The pesticide actually had a chemical substance that broke down the material that holds bird eggs together. Within just a few generations, like bald eagles were essentially dying out. So the idea of Silent Spring is like, what if we woke up one spring and there was no more bird song? So she really brought to light the damages that pesticides cause on the environment, as well as the misinformation that was intentionally being spread by the chemical industry at the time. And Silent Spring is a pivotal moment in at least America's environmental movement that helped spur the creation of Earth Day and the Endangered Species Act and many other things at the time. It was a very influential book and still a great read. Then moving to 1977, we have The Unsettling of America by Wendell Berry. Wendell Berry has a number of great nonfiction books you could read about humans' relationship with nature, but this one I think was his most cultural touchstone nonfictions, and that is really his expose on how agribusiness and agriculture really became an industry rather than a cultural and spiritual practice, that traditional farming methods encourage stewardship of the land, where agriculture today had moved towards an extraction sort of principle as its guiding force. And I still think that is very true, and Wendell Berry really was saying the things that needed to be said ahead of the time when most people were coming to that realization. And so this was a very eye-opening book for many people at the time, and still I think is very, very relevant. Skipping ahead now to 1996, we have Song of the Dodo by David Quammen. The subtitle of this book is Island Biogeography in an Age of Extinctions. This book was one that I read, but that my best friend who read this in high school really glommed onto, and she actually, I think, became a biologist for her career because of the impact this book had on her as a young person. Song of the Dodo explores evolution and extinction in island ecosystems, and how that is basically the canary in the coal mine of the microcosms that happen on islands are happening throughout our world, and it's easy to study here, but you can make extrapolations to why things are the way they are all over. And it really explores the biodiversity crisis that is happening across the world through these sort of island case studies. Now moving into the 2000s, the next two books I'm going to talk about were personally very impactful to me. The first one being The Botany of Desire by Michael Pollan. Subtitle is A Plant's Eye View of the World. I ate this book up when I first read it. I did not read it in the year 2001. I read it my freshman year of college, which would have been like 2008. This explores humanity's relationship with plants and our co-evolution together, of like how plants have shaped people and also how people have shaped plants. And it does this through 4 different case studies: one, apples, potatoes, tulips, and marijuana. And I still remember that after having read it like almost 20 years ago. So I really found it fascinating. He explores things like power structures and desire and control and things like that through humans' relationship with plants, and I thought it was super duper fascinating. The other book that I also read my freshman year of college, and which helped change my life trajectory, was Lost Mountain by Eric Ries. Lost Mountain is an expose of the coal industry and the destructive practices that they have throughout Appalachia, doing practices called mountaintop removal, which is an extremely destructive type of strip mining. This book looks at mountaintop removal through one specific mountain that he studied over the course of a year, and how it impacted the local community, how it impacted the ecosystem, the waterways, and how the coal company basically used a bunch of immoral but not quite illegal practices to make that happen. The combination of reading these two books when I was a freshman in college really made me decide that I wanted to get a degree in botany and or environmental science, and the school that I was at the time did not have a degree like that, and so I ended up transferring colleges and getting my degree in environmental science, which obviously changed everything about the rest of my life. So these two books in particular really shaped the person that I am today. And this one came out in 2007. In the year 2010, the next book published that I read and really found impactful was called For Fish by Paul Greenberg. The subtitle is The Future of the Last Wild Food. And I used to have a copy of this book, and I don't know what happened to it. It didn't make it through one of my many moves. This explored the global fisheries crisis throughout the world in a very similar format to The Botany of Desire, where it focuses, like, that book focused on 4 plants. This one focused on 4 different species of fish. And so you had tuna, salmon, cod, and sea bass as the main focus of the books. So it explores the global fisheries crisis and the impact of both overfishing and fish farming, and some of the awful practices that were happening in fish farming at the time. I think this book potentially is the one that could be the most out of date today, so I might not recommend it as strongly as the others, but at the time when I read it, close to its publication date, I found it very impactful and impacted how I think about fish as food and my relationship to eating fish. Then in 2013, we have what I would call probably the buzziest modern nature writing book in a very long time, and that is Braiding Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a botanist, but also an indigenous woman, and so this book blends those two sorts of more Western but also more indigenous philosophies about nature and how they can work together to create a healthier relationship to our natural environment. It explores the idea of responsibility, reciprocity, and gratitude when it comes to our natural world. And it is part memoir, part essays. It's kind of very wandery and meandery in a way that you would expect a storyteller to tell stories. I found this very, very good, but I know some people have struggled to get through it. So if you would like to get to the gist without having to read the entire book, her 2024 release was called The Serviceberry, and it is basically an essay. So it's a much shorter read that kind of distills down a lot of the same messages that were in this book, but makes it a little bit punchier. So I would highly recommend either, but I personally found more joy out of this one, but I think The Serviceberry was just as good. And then finally, my most recent recommendation is a 2024 release called Sing Like Fish by Amarina Kingdon. The subtitle of this one is How Sound Rules Life Underwater. And this book explores underwater acoustics and how marine animals, whether they be mammals or fish or crustaceans, use sound to communicate, to reproduce, for defense, for navigation and reproduction, and how human activity is impacting the underwater ecosystems, because things like boating and underwater drilling and things like that and the shipping industry are really causing an enormous amount of underwater sound, and sound carries much further underwater than it does in the air. And so even smaller, quieter sounds have a bigger impact underwater than they do not underwater. And it was just a really eye-opening book to me of like a part of humans' impact on the world that I hadn't really considered before. And the way she explores this by traveling around and talking to scientists who are studying this all over the world, I found very fascinating. And yeah, I just had a really good time reading this book, and it explored, again, a part of our ecosystem that was hidden to me before having experienced this book. So those are my top 10 recommendations that I personally have read. There are so many more that I would like to get to. I am actively trying to look for more nature writing, specifically scientific or environmental journalism type nature writing that is not from white authors, because I think different cultures have different experiences with nature. If you have any nature nonfiction books to recommend, I would love to hear about them down in the comments below. Or if you've had any good and or bad experiences with the books that I recommended, I'd like to hear about that too. So share your thoughts with me in the comments. And as always, thanks so much for hanging out and tuning in for a little bit today. I'll see you again soon.